Thanks so much. Our severe weather team coverage continues this morning. That windswept rain Pete's been talking about making a real mess for the conditions right now. There's a threat of flooding on local roads that would make driving dangerous in the next few hours. Eyewitness News reporter Perry Russom joins us live with a look at the conditions in Cranston.
Well, no thunder, no lightning, not too much wind, but a lot of rain. As Pete just mentioned, we are starting to see a little bit more of a downpour here in Cranston. We are standing in front of the Oak Lawn Bridge, a very popular place for flooding whenever there are flash floods like this that Pete is talking about potentially happening in this area. But when we got here about 15 minutes ago, the rain was so not as heavy as it is right now. The wind was calm, but as you can see, it's starting to pick up a little bit more. As well as the wind is starting to pick up a little bit more. I'm going to step out of the way so you can take a quick look here down at the Oak Lawn Bridge. I talked to a Cranston police officer just about 15 or 20 minutes ago. He said that it was off and on the rain overnight, and he has not seen any flooding down there. We actually drove underneath the bridge, so it is okay to go. So when we were coming from East Providence to where we are in Cranston right now on the highway, we did see some patches of water that were collecting on the highway. So if you do head out today, make sure you do take your time to avoid anything like hydroplaning, because there is some localized flooding in terms of just a small sliver of water that is on top of the roads. Brian, we're going to send it back to you in the studio.
Pete, thanks so much. And as Pete was just talking about, all the rain making street flooding a definite concern for a lot of neighborhoods right now. Eyewitness News reporter Perry Russom out this morning in the conditions. He continues our severe weather team coverage now, live from the mobile newsroom.
Good morning, Brian. We found some of that localized street flooding on Wilbur Avenue just down the street from the Oak Lawn Bridge here in Cranston. Just as you can see behind me, you can see how much some of these puddles are starting to accumulate. You can see what kind of rain we are dealing with here. It's been steady for the past half hour or so since we got out here this morning, but just to show you how deep it does get at some parts, it's about ankle deep as my boot gets soaked. Along the side of Wilbur Avenue. A couple cars have been coming through here throughout the morning, and what they're doing is they're actually just straddling the middle of the road. Here comes a car, speaking of which. There's a very thin film of water that is on top of these roads. So what these cars are doing, instead of just driving right through the puddles, they're starting to go down the middle of the road. As you can see here behind me, here comes one of the cars who is starting to do that. Brian, so when we were driving down here this morning on the highway, we did see that those little bit of pockets of rain. So if you do head out this morning, make sure you do take your time. There's always the danger of hydroplaning if you're going too fast and the water gets beneath your tire. Brian, we're going to send it back to you in the studio.
Pete, thank you. Our severe weather team coverage continues this morning. That windswept rain making a real mess out there right now. And the threat of flooding on local roads could make some dangerous driving conditions. Eyewitness News reporter Perry Russom joins us live once again with a look at the conditions out in Cranston.
We moved down in Cranston. We are on Phoenix Avenue right now. We're starting to see more cars on the road with continued localized street flooding. As Pete was mentioning, we're starting to get more and more of this rain coming down. It's been coming down like this for about an hour and a half right now. That guy's going really fast during the rain. We're starting to see some more pockets of water collecting on the roadway here on Phoenix Avenue. And what we're seeing are a couple of these drains starting to get their work out. But here's a PSA for cleaning your drains during a storm. There's a bunch of trash that's just been collecting. An old American flag is here. Wendy's is from fall. So if you want to get some of the storm out of your way, not a bad idea to clear your drain. We're going to try and dispose of this American flag properly. But as you can see, Brian, the rain is continuing to come down here. Localized street flooding pretty hard in Cranston. We're going to keep driving around to see what else we can find for the people back at home. Brian, we're going to send it back to you in the studio.
Pete has been walking us through this morning. The rain is making street flooding a real concern for a lot of neighborhoods. Eyewitness News reporter Perry Russom out monitoring those conditions. He continues our severe weather team coverage now live from the mobile newsroom.
Well, we are now at the corner of Atwood and Phoenix Avenues, and as Pete mentioned, the wind is starting to move its way into Cranston here. When we were out about 2 hours ago, down by the Oak Lawn Bridge. There wasn't much wind at all. It was just rain just coming down, just coming down straight. We just drove past the Oak Lawn Bridge. I wanted to check that out, see if there was any flooding. There's no flooding there down by the Oak Lawn Bridge, a very popular place where the water likes to rest. It seems like Cranston is starting to absorb this water a lot better than we have seen in the past. But as I mentioned, the wind is starting to pick up here. I have my anemometer, which measures wind here. We were seeing about 4 to 5 miles an hour. Might not seem like a lot, but it feels like a little bit of a difference compared to what we saw this morning. But Brian, as we were talking about the entire day, we are seeing pockets of water that are collecting on the street. People are taking their time going through. Some people, however, are just driving right past. But when you do go fast on the road, when there is a sliver of water, you do have the risk of hydroplaning. So if you do head out this morning, if you're headed to church, headed to go get your groceries, whatever you do on your Sunday, taking a couple extra 5 to 10 minutes is a better idea, just because you don't want anything bad to happen out to you. Brian, we're going to send it back to the studio.
Our severe weather team coverage continues this morning. That windswept rain making a real mess out there. The threat of flooding on local roads could make driving dangerous for the next few hours. Eyewitness News reporter Perry Russom joins us live with a look at the conditions out in Cranston. Hi, Perry.
Well, hello, Brian. No thunder, no lightning. The wind is just picking up slightly, and the rain is continuing to come down. Not as strong as we were seeing in the previous hours, but it's still raining nonetheless. But as that intermittent rain is coming and going, that's helping the drains here in Cranston. We aren't seeing too many street-level flooding. We saw some flooding in about the 6 o'clock hour, but since then, it's given the time for some of these drains to die down. For example, this drain here along Oak Lawn Avenue, when we drove up here about 15 minutes ago, the water was just about this high, and that's when the rain just stopped briefly, and that gave the chance for these drains to just take this water down and absorb this water rather than just having it pocket on top of the ground. But this goes to show you how all this rain is pushing down dead leaves, dead sticks, whatever is on the ground. It's also pushing down some of this trash, and that's what's causing some of this block up. Here, for example, we have 2 empty wine bottles, some Sauvignon Blanc. Someone I guess just didn't properly dispose of this, so that's what's collecting. Some parts of the roads where we are seeing some backup, that's where it all comes down to the drains. We saw about an hour ago, we saw an American flag, some old cups from fast food restaurants that were just collecting, and that was leading to some of the street flooding. And once we did remove it, we noticed that the water was going down quickly. But Brian, as we were saying earlier, there's still a little bit of thin film on top of the roads here, but if you do take your time, keep an eye out for those pockets of water. It should be easy going for the day. Brian?